Hey, good morning, everyone. My feedback to you is getting out later than I would like, so I apologize for that. But this is probably going to be a common theme for me. Great discussion last week. I find it very interesting that in a class of 3, that all 3 of you have a different primary learning style modal based on that assessment. And so if a class of 3 can be that different, imagine what's happening in your classroom. And imagine the different combinations that could be there in front of you with the challenge of how do I meet my students where they are when everyone can be in a different spot. So I thought it was a great conversation. But I also think we learned that it isn't just the awareness of the learning style that drives the learning process, but it's the content of what they're learning. And that was evident in Johnny's story about learning how to oil paint. You won't maybe become, or it will take a long time to become an effective painter if your primary way of learning about it is simply reading about it. In order to be an effective painter, you need to actually paint, which was then confirmed by Lockney's story about math, in that it would be difficult to really become effective with math if your primary mode of learning was just to read about it. You really have to do it in order for your brain to flex and remember the analytical skills that it needs and to complete the tasks. And so this is a great example of being able to meet your students where they are. And with every program we have, that might look different. And so I appreciated the exchange. I also liked the additive that Krista added when she was talking about, understanding these learning styles, but then also engaging students with her own stories. And I want to encourage all of you to continue doing that. That's why we hire industry experts, is that students want to hear your stories. The stories is what connects experience with the content, and they have something that they can put themselves in your shoes and anticipate. So please continue telling the stories and use that as a supplement to the learning process, because it's those stories that help a lot of that learning of the theory stick. We don't just teach about things in technical education, we teach how to do things to get students prepared for the workforce. And so being able to hear stories of it in action is great. So keep it up. Some comments I liked, I just want to kind of bring my little video here to a close, is learning does take time, no matter how you do it, and patience is needed. And so learning takes time. Making mistakes is essential to the learning process. And so making space in our classes for students to make mistakes and then come back and reflect on those is an important part of the learning process. I want to encourage you to try Johnny's teach back method that she talked about. It reminded me of the retrieval processes and strategies that were covered in last week's Monday Morning Mentor. I'm going to include a copy of those handouts for you in case you want to go back and look at some of those, using those strategies to help solidify the learning process. Using some of those strategies, he provided a lot of examples. So I thought that was great to share, so thank you for that. And again, that's that teach back strategy. And then to sum it up, that I do believe after a few modules and a few conversations and some really meaningful video comments that in Krista's words, we are going to have a good time this semester. So thank you all for sharing what you're sharing, because that's where a lot of the learning in this class is happening, and I appreciate you a lot. So thank you.